Hello, I'm thrilled that you've joined us here for another episode of The Real Deal. I'm your host, Stephanie Bristow. This episode will not disappoint as we have an incredible lineup for the night. Prepare to get your dancing shoes on as Morgan Stair leads us through his top 5 dancing scenes in film. And Ben Rockey will give you his Thanksgiving movie suggestions. Later, we'll hear Molly Raker's thoughts on this week's TV episodes. And you might find yourself wanting to join a new clique or two after you hear what Aaron Cromer has to say about cult films. However, before we get to that, let's take a look at the most recent news in the industry with this week's Hollywood Headlines with Ashley Lohman. Ashley?
Thanks, Stephanie. In case you haven't heard, funny man Billy Crystal has agreed to return to the Oscars as the 84th Annual Academy Awards host. Eddie Murphy, who was originally signed on to host, stepped down after Brett Ratner resigned as the program's producer. Crystal was asked to host by new producer Brian Grazer, and news of his confirmation was released on Thursday. Grazer says he was looking for someone hungry for the job and that he was eager to see Crystal at it again. This will be Crystal's 9th time hosting the program. Speaking of replacements, NBC and Howard Stern are currently discussing the possibility of Stern becoming the new judge on the next season of America's Got Talent. If he agrees to the terms of the contract, Stern would be replacing Piers Morgan, who says he will be leaving the show after 6 years to focus on his CNN program, Piers Morgan Tonight, and coverage of the 2012 presidential election. As of now, the deal would give Stern $15 million a year to join Sharon Osbourne and Howie Mandel as judge, all the while allowing him to continue hosting his show on Sirius XM radio. For the first time since 1966, it looks like the popular BBC show Doctor Who is heading to the big screen with director David Yates at the helm. It is reported that Yates, director of the last 4 Harry Potter films, will be teaming up with BBC to develop the film. Yates said this big screen adaptation of The Doctor will not follow the TV series, but take a new and fresh approach. The film is not expected to be released for another 2 to 3 years. That's what's happening in Hollywood. Back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Ashley. Now let the music take you away into our next segment as Denny Sullivan gives us the heads up on tonight's Music Minute.
2 big award shows took place this week. On Wednesday, the Latin Grammys paid respect to the biggest talent in Latin music from the past year. The night's big winner was Calle 13, taking home 9 awards, including Album of the Year, Song of the Year, Songwriting, and Best Urban Song. Relatively unknown in the United States, one member of the Puerto Rican duo, Rene Perez, praised the award show for honoring real music instead of giving awards to payola artists. Payola is an industry term that references the practice of paying radio stations to play certain songs. The same may not be said for the Country Music Association's award show. Also last Wednesday, the show honored the biggest names in country music. Top honors went to Taylor Swift, taking home Entertainer of the Year for her 2nd time, an impressive feat for someone who's only 21 years old. Jason Aldean took home his first award for Album of the Year and Musical Event of the Year, while the band Perry nabbed Best New Artist and Single of the Year. Married couple Blake Shelton and Miranda Lambert won Male and Female Vocalists of the Year. The show also featured an emotional performance by Glenn Campbell, who was recently announced that he was Alzheimer's disease and will be ending his career soon. Rapper Heavy D died after collapsing outside of his home last Tuesday. The Now That We've Found Love artist was only 44 years old. He first got his start as part of the group Heavy D and the Boys and released their first album in 1987. He ended up having 7 albums reach the top 10 of the R&B charts, sang the opening theme for the television show In Living Color, and even a small acting career in films such as The Cider House Rules and Step Up. He was most recently seen performing at the 2011 BET Hip Hop Awards and at the Michael Jackson Tribute Show in Wales. And that's it for the Music Minute. Back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Denny. As always, it's time for our first commercial break of the evening. If you're watching us online, then feel free to move the playhead forward a little, but don't go anywhere.
A society unwilling to learn from the past is doomed. We must never forget our history. We must never lower our guard.
So you're saying you want to rob $20 million from Arthur Shaw's penthouse apartment?
Yes. You're gonna go to jail.
Yes.
You're gonna die. Probably
yes.
both.
Yeah. Yes. Join me. And in my brave and noble quest for justice, nothing will distract me. Oh.
Are you going bald?
Huh?
No, you're getting fatter, and your hair doesn't realize it needs to cover more face.
The gods have given me vision. I cannot change the future. You can.
I have faith in you. Prove me right.
Now is the time for you film fanatics to turn up the volume as Aaron Cromer tells us what exactly it means when we hear the term cult film. Aaron?
Picture it. You walk into a movie theater and you see people in costumes. Once the movie starts, the audience starts yelling at characters, and next they're throwing rice. But never fear, you're not lost. You're just at a cult film showing. Cult films are known for their specific group of very devoted fans. These shows are often shown at midnight or gained popularity once they were available on home video. The Rocky Horror Picture Show, for example, received little critical praise or widespread box office exhibition when it was first released in 1975. It built up a base of fans that would regularly dress up as characters in lingerie and Halloween costumes and show up at midnight screenings and neighborhood cinemas. Today, Rocky Horror has the longest-running theatrical release in film history. The B-movie parody musical, like many popular cult films, deals with issues such as incest, homosexuality, and transvestitism. Another kind of cult film satirized parts of our culture we take for granted. This is Spinal Tap and Office Space, are two movies that mocked how ridiculous big-label metal bands and the corporate workplace had become. These kind of films are hits because of how closely they mirror real life. Many rock stars were not amused at the mockery and antics present in Spinal Tap, labeling them as pretentious and silly. So go, rent some ridiculous, campy movie and enjoy it without taking it or yourself too seriously. Life's short. Do the time warp.
Thanks, Aaron. You film junkies learn anything new? Get ready to learn a couple of new dance moves while Morgan Stair tells us about his 5 favorite dance scenes in this week's edition of Top 5. Lead the way, Morgan.
Thanks, Stephanie. Dance numbers are a staple of the lavish musicals of both the stage and the screen. But sometimes they're thrown into movies that aren't musicals at all, and the results vary. These are the top 5 dance scenes in recent films, musicals in the Step Up franchise excluded. Number 5, 500 Days of Summer. This scene takes place right after Joseph Gordon-Levitt sleeps with Zooey Deschanel, and let's be honest, you'd be dancing in the streets too. It's an uplifting, heartwarming little scene that appeals to the romantic inside all of us, with tight choreography and vibrant summer colors. Number 4, Napoleon Dynamite. I hate Napoleon Dynamite. I think it's boring and mostly not funny, but this scene almost somewhat redeems it, thanks to John Heater's amazing moves. It's just too bad you have to sit through the rest of this overrated stinker just to get to the famous dance scene. Number 3, Toy Story 3.
Hay un amigo en mí. Hay un amigo en mí. Cuando salgan a volar, hay un amigo en mí.
Although it happens during the end credits and not during the actual narrative, this dance between Buzz and Jessie provides an appropriately comical ending to a perfect trilogy, and a fun, fresh twist on Randy Newman's You've Got a Friend in Me. The running gag about Buzz's Spanish mode is great during the movie, and it still holds up at this point. Number 2, Slumdog Millionaire. Again, during the credits. But the Jai-Ho song is so catchy and the dance is so beautifully shot that it actually tricked many Americans into thinking Bollywood was cool for a little while. The Academy also helped. And number 1, Kung Fu Hustle. What's not to love about a gang of nefarious Asian villains doing a coordinated dance routine while wielding axes? It's like Kill Bill meets Stomp the Yard. While the movie itself is a little bizarre and some of the jokes may have been lost in translation, this dance is hilarious. And now, as a special bonus, the #1 worst dance scene in a movie goes to Spider-Man 3. Andrew Garfield, we're ready for you. Please, help us forget about that grotesque display. That's it for Top 5. I'm Morgan Stair. Back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Morgan. And that takes us straight into our next commercial break. Don't get too carried away practicing those new dance moves. We'll be right back. Did you break a leg? Let's hope not. Coming up, we've got the latest in TV with Molly Raker. But first, let's see what Ben has for us in Rocky's Corner. Ben?
Thank you, Stephanie. You know, Thanksgiving is not that far away. And if you're in college, I'm guessing that you're going to have a 5-day weekend to just sit back and kick it. And by sit back, I mean relaxing in one of those comfy movie theater chairs. And by kick it, I mean kick that jerk in front of you who keeps talking on his cell phone. Halloween and Christmas get their movie mayhem each year, but does Thanksgiving ever really get its recognition in the cinema? Well, this year, it's time for you to help change that by using the holiday to experience what look like they're going to be quite enjoyable films. First, there's The Muppets. Now, as far as I can tell, it's not a Thanksgiving movie per se. The plot does not revolve around the holiday, but it does come out on the holiday itself. So, why not make it a Thanksgiving memory that you'll be able to cherish? After all, it looks like it's going to be a super fun time. Now, I've only seen a Muppets Treasure Island and a Muppets Christmas Carol, so am I one to say whether or not this looks good? Maybe, maybe not. But since I have seen those, I can tell you that I am definitely seeing this film. Plus, it was written by Jason Segel, the writer and star of Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Plus, not only is he funny and musically gifted, but he is also a huge Muppets fan. So I think it's safe to say that this film is in good hands. Another film that seems like it's worth a look is Tower Heist. Now, usually I find Ben Stiller annoying. His neurotic rambling can get on my nerves, but putting that rambling onto a non-criminal turned heist master, that could be very funny. It also stars Eddie Murphy in a role that does not look like it was conceived by a studio executive's daughter. It also stars Matthew Broderick, Casey Affleck, and Gabor Siddiq. I mean, that sounds like such an odd but awesome cast. It looks like it will be really funny. Sort of like how Horrible Bosses was to murder, this film will be to heists. Also, this is actually a Thanksgiving movie. The heist occurs around the Macy's Day Parade. Hopefully this will turn into one of those that you can pop in each Thanksgiving. Because nothing says Thanksgiving like a bunch of people robbing a greedy millionaire who completely screwed them all over. Well, those are the two films I have in mind for viewing on Thanksgiving weekend. Be sure to check them out. I know there are some Christmas movies out there that may seem tempting, but we're barely even halfway through November. Cherish this month. Sure, it's cold, but the love you feel from those around you on this upcoming holiday can be very warm. Not to mention using these movies I just described to get some snuggle time in with your sweetheart. So, this has been another round in Rocky's Corner. I give my thanks to you for watching. Stephanie?
Thank you, Ben. You never fail to entertain. Now we transition to the small screen as Molly Raker takes us into an in-depth look at this week's episode of the week. What have you got for us, Molly?
Thanks, Stephanie. Now, NBC's comedy lineup has done it again. Last week was Parks and Recreation, and this week my episode of the week goes to Community. Though I can assure you guys that The Office and Whitney will never be my episode of the week. Ugh. But onto the episode where Annie moves into Troy and Abed's apartment, or hashtag Annie's move, and the whole study gang got together to help her move, except one, but we'll get to that later. Now, Annie was super excited about living with Troy and Abed, but then soon realized that maybe it was a mistake. Just take a look.
How are we out of packing tape?
I don't know. I think I left some in the bathroom.
Didn't feel it.
Maybe a slight danger I will end up hating them. What's that?
That is your room.
But it's a bedroom.
No. There's only 2 bedrooms, including the blanket fort. This is the Dreamatorium.
But of course, it all worked out in the end, as you can see.
It's all yours. We're sorry. Sometimes we get stuck in our own little world. And then in that world, we make even littler worlds. And sometimes there are tunnels between those worlds. Or subway. One time a snake. We're sorry.
Now, what I loved about this episode, it was off of Greendale's campus, which is a great idea because soon enough they will all be graduating from Greendale and probably will not be going back there. So they're establishing a life outside of campus, so once that day comes, they have a place, storylines, and how they act outside of campus, which is a great idea. They've been doing a really great job because pretty much all my favorite episodes from this season have been off of Greendale's campuses. Now, on to Jeff, who was the one study group member who did not help. And in my personal opinion, I'd rather have helped Annie move than did what he did.
I compare you to a kiss from a rose on the grave. Ooh, the more I get of you, the stranger it feels, yeah.
My honorable mention, which goes to ABC's new show, Once Upon a Time. I am in love with the mythology of the show, which comes to no surprise since the writers of Lost are helping out. Now in this episode, we see this backstory of Snow White and the prince and how they met and how, well, they didn't really like each other at first, but of course, in the end, they get married, happily ever after. Well, so they thought. Because in the real world, the curse world, they aren't together, and actually Prince Charming was in a coma, and then they just realize he's married because of the evil witch, of course. Now, I just have 2 things to improve the whole show in its entirety is the costumes and the hair sometimes are a little, they need improvement. And also, the little boy Henry is annoying. And if you guys have watched Mad Men, you know what I'm talking about. Now, that's all I have for you guys tonight. Until next time, keep watching TV. Back to you, Stephanie.
Look at that. You don't even have to leave your couch for that kind of entertainment. Thanks, Molly. And now for our final commercial break, but don't go away. When we come back, Andrew Bennett will tell us what we should check out next time we make a trip to Bracken Library. See you soon. Again, you made the right decision to stay tuned in. You'll be happy to know that you can find this next suggestion right here on campus. Let's see what Andrew Bennett has for us in this week's Best of Bracken.
Thanks, Stephanie. For Best of Bracken today, I decided to talk about a film from 2001 that didn't do too well at the box office, but has developed a pretty respectable cult following. Donnie Darko from first-time director Richard Kelly is a film I don't think I'll soon forget. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you check it out now. I love films about questions, and Donnie Darko was filled with them. It's a mind-bending story about the ordinary that just might be the extraordinary. Let me just start out by saying that this movie is incredibly hard to describe. For example, I was looking up the synopsis on IMDb, and this is what I got. A troubled teenager is plagued by visions of a large bunny rabbit that manipulates him to commit a series of crimes after narrowly escaping a bizarre accident. What? If I had read that synopsis before watching this film, I don't think I would have watched it at all. This is one of those movies that you just have to go into with an open mind. It follows the story of Donnie Darko, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, who is a tortured high school soul whose mind is infested with unbelievable hallucinations and compulsions. After surviving a bizarre accident with a jet engine, Donnie gains the ability to see into the future, and it is a very grim future. He begins getting help from a giant rabbit named Frank that only he can see, and he begins decoding the puzzle of the future in order to save humanity. Are you still confused? Well, that's okay, because luckily this film doesn't necessarily have to be completely understood to be enjoyed. I won't lie to you. I had to see this thing at least 3 times before I began to really crack it. But that's the fun of it. On my first viewing experience, I enjoyed Donnie Darko as a confusing but compelling journey into the life of a special high school kid. Richard Kelly captures better than any film I've seen recently what it really feels like to be in high school. The performances are excellent, especially Jake Gyllenhaal's performance as Donnie. He is simply brilliant as he flawlessly transitions from normal, intelligent teen to potentially unstable and dangerous man-child. At one moment, he's arguing with his sister Elizabeth at the dinner table, and the next, he's exploring the innermost dark chambers of his mind. He's a character we fear and love at the same time. We also see some great performances from Drew Barrymore, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Mary McDonnell, and Holmes Osborne. Even Seth Rogen has an unexpected cameo as a high school bully. I normally wouldn't recommend a film like this to everyone. If you're one of those people that gets frustrated if you don't understand your movies, you may want to be careful when approaching this one. However, there is so much more to this movie that keeps it appealing to a wide audience. Donnie Darko defies categorization, incorporating sci-fi, coming of age, dark comedy, satire, first love, and ultimately something potentially spiritual. Rarely does a film so successfully manage to screw with your head, suck in your emotions, and spit them back out with the power of Donnie Darko. Back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Andrew. It's almost time to go, but before we do, I wanted to leave you with my final word. Since we've only got a couple more episodes before the holidays, I wanted to look at a few great films from 2011. Out of all the movies made, it's impossible to pick just a few, but tonight I wanted to talk about two movies that really caught my attention. First up, The Adjustment Bureau. In this action thriller, Matt Damon plays an ambitious political candidate running for Senate. During election night, Damon comes across the woman of his dreams, Emily Blunt, hiding inside a bathroom stall. Meanwhile, the Adjustment Bureau is a team watching these events, making sure that every human on Earth follows a specific plan. Long story short, Damon learns that the Bureau is trying to direct his life according to plan, and this plan doesn't include the woman he falls in love with. The Bureau threatens Damon after he tries to alter his plan by telling him that if he continues to disobey, he will not reach his goal to become President of the United States, and Blunt will not reach her dreams of becoming a world-famous dancer and choreographer. Damon is forced to make the toughest decision of his life. The symbolism and messages from this film are really thought-provoking. George Nolfi did a great job directing this film to make it one of my favorites of 2011. More recently, I was finally able to watch Water for Elephants. I've been told the book is just as good as the movie. Even more so, those who don't like Robert Pattinson for his role in the Twilight series really seem to enjoy him in this film. Pattinson plays Jacob, a young Polish-American finishing school at Cornell during the Great Depression. During his final exam, Jacob learns that his parents died in a car wreck. Left with nothing, Jacob jumps onto a passing train and soon discovers a new life. He joins the Benzini brothers' circus and encounters the beautiful Marlena, played by Reese Witherspoon. Jacob soon learns that Marlena is the wife of the circus owner, but he's able to work closely with her and the animals because of his background in veterinary science from Cornell. Marlena's husband is hungry for success and will do anything to reach it. Jacob is well liked, but drama unfolds as Jacob and Marlena become closer. The acting in this film is incredible, and the life of those in the circus is fascinating. Definitely check this one out. That's my final word and the end of our show this week. Real Deal will be taking a break for Thanksgiving next week, but no worries, we'll be back in 2 weeks. During that time, be sure to check us out on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on all things entertainment. Have a good night. I'm Stephanie Bristow.
I, Edward Cullen, take you, Bella Swan.
For better or for worse.
To love.
To cherish. As long as we both shall live.
I'm starving you by the hour. I'm the one who'll lose you.
You have to accept what is.
You've given me no choice! Get ready. They're coming for Bella. They're not gonna touch her. If you kill her, you kill me!
Uh-oh. That's not healthy.